Welcome to this video, traders. So today I want to start a new video series and it's called Let's Talk About a Stock. And I want to introduce some companies to you, and I also want to show you what I see in the companies. And yeah, let's talk about that a little bit so that I can share my thoughts with you. The first one is AMD. So AMD, everybody knows the company. It's a semiconductor company, and you know AMD maybe from your laptops where you have an AMD processor inside. But today AMD is much more than only a CPU company or a classical semiconductor company. I see AMD as a data center company. So AMD has one unit which produces CPUs for desktop PCs and also for laptops. They are producing graphic cards and also special CPUs or high-end CPUs for servers and for data centers. And data center in general is a fast-growing industry because you need those data centers for a lot of operations and a lot of things you see and feel in the internet. So everything around artificial intelligence and machine learning is done in data centers. And data centers consist of a lot of different computers, and they are highly specialized. You can book data center capacity over the internet, and you can run a lot of operations on those data center computers. So first of all, let's look at the chart and let's look at the fundamentals of AMD here. So I use MarketSmith, and you can see the chart here from AMD. It's a wonderful trend, and AMD started here around $2 in March 2016, and today it's around $100. So a big turnaround in the past. And if we go back here into the monthly chart, you can see that AMD went sideways for many years before they started a new uptrend and reached a new all-time high. And the reason for the turnaround here was the new upcoming data center theme. So I did a lot of research about that, and especially here in the years 2015, 2016, that was the time when the first press releases were published where AMD said, okay, we entered the data center market and high-end CPU market, and it's growing very fast. So, and then they also developed, and I think they acquired a company for graphic cards, and over the time graphic cards became one of the most important things in data center, because if you want to do artificial intelligence and machine learning operations, you need GPUs, so graphic processor units, to do all the operations. And there are only two leading companies in the world for data center GPUs. That's NVIDIA and that is AMD. And you can see the big turnaround here from $2 to 100, and that is totally based on the data center theme and GPU theme. And you can see the big growth also here in the sales. So let's look back here at the last quarters. So AMD came here from 2 billion sales in quarter December 2019. Today it's June 21, and they have around 3,850,000,000 sales in one quarter. So it almost doubled here in the last quarters, and you can see the large growth and also increase of the growth here. So from 53% to 93% and 99%. So it's one thing to have a big sales growth. The other thing, and that is the much more important thing, is what is the future potential of the company. So because those numbers, they are only the past numbers. So it's not the present and not the future. But if you look at the data center market and you have only two important companies in the world which are dominating the data center market, so NVIDIA and also AMD, there is a huge future potential. So because only two companies are dominating in $1 billion US dollar market, and they are able to grow extreme fast. And AMD is not not a small cap company, so it's a 130 billion company. And in that case, also institutions look at AMD and they also analyze the fundamentals and the story behind that, and maybe they are seeing the same thing I see here, and they start to invest or already invest in the data center theme, and AMD is one of the biggest players. So they have to own them if they want to invest into the data center theme. And when one or two companies are dominating $1 billion US dollar market, they can have an influence on the prices. So there's almost no alternative. Of course, Intel is one of the alternatives in the data center CPU market, but if you read the news and if you read what data centers are saying about Intel chips, so they are more expensive, they have problems with the delivery of the high-end CPUs, and AMD is one of the best alternatives in that market. And more people and data centers are switching to AMD. We will come to that when we look at the last quarterly report. So, and when two companies or just a handful of companies are dominating a market, you can also see high margins and you can also see high EPS. So because they can dictate the prices, and here in that case AMD is a experienced company, so they have a lot of knowledge about processes, so how to develop CPUs, how to speed up the processes, and also how to optimize the processes. And with optimization, there is also optimization of margins meant. So, and one of the big differences between Intel and also AMD is AMD is a factorless company, so they do not have any factories. So they are only designing the chips, and other companies like Taiwan Semiconductors, they are producing the chips for AMD. So it's a very cost-efficient process, and Intel is doing exactly the opposite. And that is why you see those big EPS and also margins here in the case of AMD. So when you look at the EPS here, that is really outstanding for a 130 billion company, and also in the semiconductor area. You can see an acceleration here in the last 3 quarters, so 63, 189, and 250. So they are able to deliver outstanding EPS and sales growth performance over the last quarters, and also an acceleration. Then you can also see high return on equity here, large EPS growth over the last years. So, and you can see that here the estimations for 2021 is plus 90%, and for 2022 it's 23%. So that is really outstanding, especially for semiconductor companies, because if you look at other semiconductor companies, they are highly dependent on other industries. So for example, automotive, and they go up and down with the global economy, and they also go up and down with other industries like automotive. And the most semiconductor companies have big estimates for this year, but they are very small for the next year. And that is the good thing about AMD and also NVIDIA. So they are dominating a different field. So they are playing not with 100 other semiconductor companies in the same sector. So they are not fighting about automotive or something. No, they are dominating an own field. So data centers, and that makes AMD and also NVIDIA so unique. And AMD and NVIDIA, they are two different players, because NVIDIA itself has not an own GPU, not an own CPU unit. They are only producing GPUs and graphic cards and software. So an AMD is really is outstanding because they are dominating so many fields. And another thing I have in my mind, I'm not 100% sure if that's AMD or NVIDIA, they also acquired a company for data center interconnects, so that you can connect data centers with each other. I'm not sure if that's AMD or NVIDIA, but for my analysis here, it doesn't play any role. So, but you can see that also both companies are expanding their business. They create new business opportunities. And that is very important. You don't have to look always at the present growth or at the past growth. You must get a feeling for the future growth. So what is the potential? Why should institutions buy and hold the stock? And why should they pay up? So pay more and more and more and more for the stock. You know, and if you look at here, 134 a billion market cap, so that's not so much. You know, for a leading data center company, I personally think that is very small. So especially if you compare that with NVIDIA, so let's look at NVIDIA for a second here. NVIDIA has around 1.8 billion more revenue here, but they have a market cap of 503 billion. So that is really, really huge. But of course, their business is a little bit different, and they have a wider followership here, and they have a little bit more revenue here, and they have different technologies which are very interesting, not only for data centers. So let's switch back here to AMD, and you can see here the very nice base over the last couple of months here. So the stock went sideways here for a couple of months. The relative strength line went down. I think here during the correction it was only 50 or something. So very low number. Today it's 88. So it's also increasing. And then with the last quarterly report, you see the breakout, and you see a very, very large increase here in volume. So it's the highest volume since I would say since September 2018, so a long time. And that is a sign that people are getting really interested in the stock again. A base breakout from a long-term base here, huge volume is coming into the stock. And when you look into the daily chart here, you can see that there is a cup and handle here, the long base, the breakout with huge volume. After a dry up here in volume. And then you can see also here a little bit distribution during the last days here with a pullback. So by the way, just for transparency, I own the stock. I sold a little bit here around the 120 US dollar level, and I bought back during the pullback here. And now it's getting interested. So now it's getting really exciting here. Is the stock able to turn higher or not? Does the stock need more time to consolidate or not? So that is very interesting, and the next days or weeks will tell us more about that. So I don't give anything about PE ratio or something. It's 50 here, so I doesn't care about that, because I look into the future. So I want to see that the company is growing the earnings much faster, and in that case, when a company is able to grow the profits much faster as a price, so in that case the PE ratio will decrease in the next months or next years. So that's why I don't give anything about PE. The only thing what I find interesting is maybe the price to sales ratio. So it's not visible here in MarketSmith. You can see we have around 4 billion US dollar revenue or sales per quarter. So that means we have 16 billion revenue per year. So just as a very simple calculation. So 16 billion revenue per year, and then you look at the market cap and see, okay, it's 130. So that means we have a price to sales ratio less than 10, and 10 to 20. So that is the region where you have, where it's getting more and more expensive. But again, the price to sales ratio, price to earnings ratio is not so important, because if the company is able to grow at the same pace or at a similar pace in the next months or next year, in that case, the price to earnings ratio or price to sales ratio will stay the same or even decrease. So, and that is why the current ratio is not so important. So I always assume that the stock will continue or even accelerate the growth in future. So let's look into the last earnings report here from AMD in the second quarter 2021. And what I always look for when I look into such an earnings press release, I always look for a small comment from the CEO. Of course, you must have in mind that this is really, it's communication. So that means some departments in the company, they worked over a couple of days or even weeks to find the right statement here. But from my standpoint of view, it's very important what is the company saying about their own business and what do they want to communicate. So what should be in my mind after I read the statement? And this is something which I personally find interesting, because if the company is communicating a too high expectation or something, that can lead to some disappointment in the shareholders. But if they communicate that they are just having an average quarter or something, that could have low expectations. So, and let's look at what the CEO here said. So our business performed exceptionally well in the second quarter as revenue and operation margin doubled and profitability more than tripled year over year. So doubled, tripled, so that is really, really outstanding. Especially they are communicating here the margin. So the margin doubled and the profitability tripled. So they do not talk about revenue so much here. No, they are talking about margins and say, okay, guys, we are very efficient here and we are able to create a very efficient process, and that is driving our profits, and that is why we have such a high margin. So we are very, very good in our business. That is what I read here when I look at the statement. So, and the CEO continued here, we are growing significant faster than the market with strong demand across all our businesses. We now expect our 2021 annual revenue to grow by approximately 60% year over year, driven by strong execution and increased customer preference for our leadership products. So what I personally only find interesting here in the second part is we are growing significantly faster than the market. So that means we are the leaders in the market. So we are really, really strong. And that is what I find interesting. So when they are look at the benchmarks and they see, okay, we are really, really outstanding in the market. So then I personally look at some other things here. Revenue, of course, up 99%, and that is really, really outstanding, driven by computing, graphics segment, enterprise, etc. And if you have such a company like AMD here, it has a lot of departments. And for me, it's interesting, where is the growth coming from? So what drives the growth? And I know that AMD has different departments, so for desktop computers, CPUs, for GPUs, so graphic cards, and also for enterprise things, so data center things. And that is what I personally find interesting. So let's scroll a little bit down here. So they also said, okay, we have a 4 billion share repurchase program. That's also one thing which is interesting. And then we come to the segment summary. And this is interesting for me because I want to see how is the data center business growing. And then you can see here computer and graphic cards segment was up 65% year over year. So higher client and graphic card sales. That's not so much. This is below the 99% we saw on the overall revenue. And you can see here client processor, GPU. So that is not so interesting. That is not data centers. And then we look here at enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom. Segment was up was 1.6 billion, up 183%. So that is a really huge number. So almost 200%. Of course, we always have in our mind that the last quarter last year. So let's look here in MarketSmith. So we are comparing the June 21 to the June 20 quarter. So the June 20 quarter, that was a COVID-19 quarter. So all the numbers were down because of COVID-19, and a lot of companies stopped any buying and an extension of data centers or whatever. So they stopped buying the products because they need a lot of cash and they have to find a way to survive in their own business. And that is why you see so strong quarters in a lot of companies at the moment. But it's up 183%. So that is a huge number. So the business really, really is going up here. And you can see the increase were driven by higher Epic processor revenue and semi-custom product sales. So the Epic processor, that is the processor which is used in data centers. So that is the alternative to Intel, for example. And when I see that the department or the business from this segment is growing so fast, this is a confirmation for my hypothesis about AMD is becoming the leader in the data center business. And that is exactly what I find interesting here in the press release from from AMD here. So let's look one second to the Intel chart here. So you can see the Intel chart is going sideways, exactly the opposite. And you can see no growth in the last quarters, no EPS, negative EPS estimates here. That is really, really bad. So this company is not growing anymore. And that is why the chart is going sideways. And I mean, look at the market cap. They had 216 billion market cap. So the market cap is higher than AMD here. But their business is not growing anymore, and that is a huge trouble. So always have in mind, Intel is still a company which is used in data centers, and if the whole data center business is growing, why is Intel not growing anymore? So the only reason could be that other companies are taking over the market share from Intel, and that is AMD, because it's the only alternative. So there's not much alternatives when it comes to CPUs and data centers. So AMD is the only alternative, and that is why AMD is growing and Intel is not growing anymore. So AMD is taking over market share from Intel. And that is why you see this big increase also in the stock price in the last years here. So, and when you see such a big breakout here from a big base, and you look back in the chart, here was also a big breakout from the base. Here was another big breakout from a base. So this is not a rocket stock, It does not go up from say 10 to 20 or 30 US dollar in just a couple of months. So it's more going up in a very nice and steady way. So, but you can see here from that base, the stock is now up, say from 20 to 100 in almost 2.5 years here. So, and especially when you see acceleration also in business, that is where you can see, okay, there's maybe a huge potential also on the upside. And there is no reason why not the market cap of AMD should double. So if this company really becomes a leader in the data center business in the next years, there is a huge potential. So because every time when now data centers update their infrastructure, they have the decision between Intel and AMD. So, and maybe they will decide for AMD in the next years, more and more and more and more. And that will drive the business from them. And I mean, look at the EPS growth here in the last years. So they came from a negative EPS, 10 cents, then 46 cents. So this is growing very, very fast here. And the reason is they have extreme good margins and are able to grow their business. And they are very unique in the business. I mean, look at the margins here. So this is the after-tax margin. So it's almost around 20% here. And it's very steady. So they are making money. They are very good and efficient in their business. And that's all I need to see. And when I see here a huge breakout to the upside and huge volume, so that means also institutions are rushing into the stock here. And maybe they increase their exposure here to AMD. So you have everything, you have the technical picture, the fundamental picture, the story behind the stock. You have a confirmation that also institutions are buying here into the stock. Of course, these are only snapshots from the current moment. Next week, everything can change. Also, my opinion can change. So, but it doesn't matter. So at the moment, the facts are speaking to have exposure in such a stock here. And maybe it will be a next leader, maybe not. So that will tell time. And I base my buy and sell decisions here on the price. So when the price is going up, everything is fine. When the price is going down and breaks through the breakout level again, in that case, I become a seller and maybe I'm out of the stock. So. And also when the stock continues to fall back here, that's also a reason for me to sell more and decrease my position. But at the moment, the price is going up again. And look back to the weekly chart here. I mean, it broke out here. It had some great weeks. So the breakout week was 15% on 150% volume in the weekly chart. So that's huge. The next week was only 3.69%, so a very small gain with 186%. So that was a week when accumulation and distribution came into the stock. So that means there was some profit taken, there was some distribution definitely. And that caused me a little bit to be cautious. So that was the reason why I sold here a little bit. And then in the next week, so that was the current week here, we saw a very small change, so only 0.4%, but above average volume. And when you look into the daily chart here, that is maybe the situation when now distribution is over and the stock will turn higher. So you can see that here in the last day. So that was I think Thursday, you see volume decrease significantly, and then the next day the volume increased. So there was demand. And also when you look into the 60-minute chart, or maybe let's look a little bit deeper into the 30-minute chart. So you can see in the 30-minute chart, you can see in the pullback itself, there have been some big updates. So that was here one day, or 1 hour or 1/2 hour where you see a lot of volume. So then here's another supportive volume action. Here's a strong volume bar. So always the open, especially the open, the first half hour or 1 hour, that was very supportive. So there was buying pressure in the first hour. And after that, so after the orders were executed, especially from large institutions, then the price dropped a little bit. And then the next day, buying power was back. So you can see also here in the hourly chart that there is still demand for the stock. And that is super, super interesting for me, so that I can see, okay, there is supportive action going on, and maybe it's just a pullback and not a correction. So I hope that this video helped you a little bit to get more insights into what I think about a stock and what I look at. So especially when it comes to the chart, to the story, to sister stocks. So that means to stocks which are also in the business. And I always think what it's really, really important is that the company is able to dominate their field. So because that makes it easier for the company to increase sales, to increase margins, and with margins also to the EPS. And especially when they have also a strong brand and a lot of happy customers, it becomes more and more difficult for other companies to enter the business. And in that situation, a new leader and a new leading company developed, and that is what I see here, especially with AMD in the next time. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Write a comment if you have any questions or if you want to give me some feedback. So I personally publish a free newsletter every week where I introduce 3 stocks of my personal watch list. I look at the market, and I also write some things about mindset and trading psychology. I personally also wrote a free ebook. You can get it if you subscribe to the newsletter as a welcome gift. And of course, you can follow me here on YouTube, Twitter, and other social media networks.